Watches and Wonders is rapidly approaching, and everybody wants to know what Rolex is releasing. But unfortunately, nobody ever knows for sure until April 1st, 9 a.m. when this embargo lifts. But Russ, I mean, I think you probably saw it, right? There were these leaks.
Yeah, they happen every year, and they're never accurate until maybe a leak that happens the day before.
Yeah, if even.
If even then, exactly.
You wrote up a Rolex 2025 predictions piece on the Time+Tide site, and we had a very Photoshop educated, let's say, colleague of ours put together some renders. But you know what? That's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the watches that are in this predictions piece. So first up, what we've got here is a special GMT-Master II for a special anniversary. Russ, tell me more about it.
Yeah. Look, so it's 70 years since the original GMT Master was released by Rolex. There's no way that they can't celebrate such a big, significant anniversary. Now, obviously, this is a little on the nose, as I asked Tom to render up a platinum GMT, as a 70th anniversary is the platinum anniversary. But I just think it feels appropriate. There isn't a platinum GMT-Master II in the lineup right now, so it would fill that hole if you see it as that way. But I just think it would be really pretty cool to have a platinum GMT. Tom did it on an Oyster. I would maybe have it on a Jubilee bracelet, just because that's my preference on these models. And we had this debate last year as well between Oysters and Jubilees during our appointment. But why not throw a meteorite dial in there too? Like, stone dials are hot right now. This feels bang on for what would celebrate what is a significant milestone for a very significant watch in the history of watchmaking. Like, let's not sort of brush over the fact that the GMT changed the way a lot of us see travel time watches. And to mark that 70 years, it seems like we have to do it properly.
Yeah, I would argue the GMT Master, in some respects, is the collection that kind of created this bridge for Rolex to eventually get to where it is today, which is more luxury than it is professional tool watch. Because, especially when this watch was created, aviation was considered this sort of glamorous, jet-setting lifestyle, cosmopolitan pilot, Concorde planes or jets or whatever I'm supposed to call it. But yeah, look, so it's your job to run me through this, but for me, when I look at this, I don't know. I think you're onto something here with having a platinum model with an exhibition case back. I could see for an anniversary a Le Mans Daytona style, sort of like, upper echelon kind of GMT Master II. Do I think a platinum Rolex would have a Coke bezel? Probably not. Yeah. I also think that
there is no platinum GMT in the collection right now, so there's no sort of precedent set for what a platinum GMT would have.
But what I would say there is, I feel like with platinum, typically the go-to is that like icy blue, right?
Yeah, on the dial.
And I would suspect that with the icy blue on the dial, maybe again, kind of like the Daytona, you'd see more of like a full brown bezel. I don't know if they're trying to keep that consistency across the lines. But that being said, I do think that, especially because with all the patents that like Nick Gould and other people have sort of shown out there, I do think that this is the year that we would see a Coke bezel GMT. I think more likely than not, it would be in steel. And because it's in steel, I don't think it would go to platinum.
No, that's fair. And look, the Coke bezel GMT has been one of those things that we felt like it's been teased to us for a number of years now. So the render that we had Tom do for this one was a bit of an amalgamation of a lot of things with platinum, with meteorite, with Coke, with display case back. Like, it's kind of mashing all of our hopes and dreams into one watch. And so it's just an efficient way of saying, hey, if one of these four things is right, I'm going to count that as a win.
But speaking of likely or unlikely, right?
Sure.
We talk about things like the Le Mans Daytona, right? Which the thing that really stood out about it wasn't even just the usage of an exhibition case back. That's not exclusive to the Le Mans.
Nope.
But what is exclusive to the Le Mans is the sort of the vintage throwbacks, right? Like the Singer inspired dial with like the sort of, a slightly modern take on the Paul Newman font. Do we think that for this anniversary, they would do something like that? I mean, obviously they're not going to throw a bakelite bezel on a modern watch, but do they do like a special font for the Cerachrom bezel where it's more reminiscent of the original, GMT Master? I mean, I think we're going to have no crown guards? No, we're pretty definitely going to have crown guards.
Yeah, let's pump the brakes on that, Zach.
Yeah.
But I think it's totally possible. I think it would be a real sort of showstopper if they do. And look, hey, I just came from a couple of days ago, the Rolex new boutique opening on Old Bond Street here in London. And down in the basement, they have an entire exhibition to the GMT Master. And so you can go through the whole history of that model there, and you can see just how much it's changed. And so if they were to go back to some of that earlier, like you say, just a typeface change, right? Like that would be such an amazing throwback for the true GMT lovers and collectors out there.
All right.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Do you have a beautiful car?
I do.
And where do you park it?
I park it in a garage, or is it garage?
Let's go with garage.
Garage.
Why would you park a beautiful car on the street? This is the ultimate two-car garage for your two-watch collection. Tell me about it. It's shiny.
This is a beautiful piece of engineering. It's a two-piece watch winder called Axis. Open it up with the lock there. You said two watches. It actually houses four, if you can believe that.
Show me.
Four of them. On the top here you have a cuff where you can have a watch suspended, or you can also travel with your watches with this little guy. So the watch just drops inside there if you want
Let's try it.
put that in there like that.
This is Marcus's watch.
And it closes up, and away you go. Wherever you want in the world.
Where to?
Ibiza. No, I'm just joking.
Jumping on. Okay, yeah, looks like you guys have rendered up as well, like a black and green and yellow gold. That would be fun. But let's move on to the 1908, which has always been a point of fascination for me. Like from the moment that started, because everybody saw the watch for the most part, but I think what and I'm not alone in this, but it was more the potential of the collection. We've yet to really see that, be realized. We had the first 1908s. Then the following year, we saw a guilloche dial, which, for Rolex, that's like a reinvention of the wheel. We don't typically get guilloche dials from Rolex. So that was certainly a next evolution, but not an evolution in the complicated
Guilloche stamped dial. Let's not get a.
Yeah, we had a back and forth with them about that.
They were not going to carry Butalinen to have those dials produced. Let's be clear.
But okay, so we said it last year, it didn't happen, and we're saying it again this year. The 1908 finally gets complications.
We are sticking to our guns, and this is partly just a plead to Rolex to please do this, because, like you say, Zach, like there is so much potential with this 1908 collection, and it, as I say in the article, like I think it gives Rolex the opportunity to really flex some horological muscles here. And I applaud their cautiousness when it came to the first couple of years of the line's release. The Cellini wasn't terribly popular, wasn't the sellout, wasn't exhibition only for every year. So I can understand why, when they're sort of redesigning and rediscovering this dress watch sort of factor in their catalog, why they would be cautious with its release. But I think now that we've shown how popular this 1908 can be, let's go crazy with it. Let's throw a calendar complication in there. Let's not just throw a moon phase and let's call it a day. Let's be a bit more adventurous.
Yeah, I'll be totally frank. I don't think I've ever seen a 1908 in the wild, and I don't know if that's a situation that's created because they're so hard to buy, or because there's maybe not as many people as we would think lining up to buy them. But I think the thing that would draw people into a collection like the 1908 to a dress watch category of Rolex, which is seems so alien and foreign within the context of Rolex today, is complication, adding that sense of like, okay, yes, this isn't a diver that you can dive 300 meters with, or a GMT, that's evocative of pilot watches from the 50s and 60s. But to have something that evokes to the sort of like the Rolex lean and stuff like that, I think that's really cool. Like this, what I believe is a triple calendar. That Tom's rendered here.
Triple calendar chronograph.
Triple calendar chronograph. Yeah, I think that's a bit ambitious. I would be happy with just a triple calendar. But the thing that I realized when the news of Karl F. Bucherer being rumored to be shut down, and as I was doing my research there, one thing that came up, because taking a step back, the biggest roadblock for a watch like this to come out is, of course, developing a movement. And developing a movement, especially a brand like Rolex, where like they're going to do it all in house, it takes time. And the 1908's only been a thing for what, two years now.
Yep.
So that would be a pretty quick turnaround from the standard sort of 1908 that we have to a like more complicated one. But Karl F. Bucherer, I didn't know this until I did this research. When Rolex acquired Bucherer, they also acquired in the process THA.
Yeah.
Which is the renowned movement complications firm, which remind me which watch I know which watchmakers, but I'm saying remind me so that you have to say their names instead of me. I'll just butcher
Thank you for this. Yeah, absolutely. So THA founded by FP Journ's Denis Flageolet, FP Journe of FP Journe, and Denis Flageolet of de Bethune, and also included watchmakers like Vianney Halter, not a founder, but one of the key watchmakers there, and designed such movements as the monopusher chronograph movement that went into the Cartier CP Tortue, a real collector's favorite. So yeah, they did acquire that, and so they've got this kind of amazing complication specialist ready to go. But I would point out the fact that it's not like Rolex to suddenly start designing or developing something last minute. If they are going to do this year, it has been in the works for 5 years. Let's make no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So I think that if they do this, they probably started designing this before the 1908 was even released. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I only raise, you're 100% right with what you're saying. I only raise the whole THA thing because I think at this stage, do I think this is very likely? Probably not. It's a pretty ambitious prediction, especially with the chronograph. But when you take into account things like the acquisition of THA and the fact that Rolex, as much as they don't do tourbillons or whatever, like the Sky Dweller is not an uncomplicated watch.
Very
right?
true.
Like it's
very
pretty
true.
complex architecture. So they really don't have an excuse is what I'm getting at here. So I would say that, is it likely we see it this year? I'm not holding my breath, but it's got to happen in the next few years. It has to.
You'd hope so.
Otherwise, it's just going to be another Cellini and, it's going to bite the dust. Just my opinion.
But I think I wanted to quickly, I know we're going to move on, but touch on a point that you made earlier where you said that, this 1908, it's not the tool watch that we know from Rolex. It's not the Submariner that can go down, hundreds and hundreds of meters. It's not the Pan Am GMT that can go up to 30,000 feet. But how many of those watches are used for that purpose now? Every man needs a dress watch in his wardrobe. And if you are a Rolex diehard that wears just Rolex religiously, this is the dress watch to wear. And so why not make it a bit more special with the complication? That's my argument for it.
Nobody's arguing against this. It's just a question.
No, I shouldn't think so.
Rolex do it,
Yeah.
But okay, so moving on, I did find this quite interesting from you and from Tom. So the idea of the Oyster Perpetual jumping on the stone dial trend.
Come on. Now you've got to tell me that would be a hot watch. You try and get one. I don't doubt it.
Would I object if they made it? Absolutely not. But do I think they will do it? I hate to say this. Absolutely not. And it's not that they wouldn't do stone dials again. I just don't think they would do it again in the Oyster Perpetual range. That really is the the entry. It's one thing to do like the lacquered colors, which I'm sure in some respect inspired this prediction, right? But that's lacquer. And they're doing the Stella dial sort of revival, but with lacquer. That's not gonna, really up the price of an Oyster Perpetual. So with something like these stones, personally, I would say it's far more likely to happen in a collection like the Day-Date, which is more premium.
Absolutely. And it already does exist in the Day-Date, because you can already get Day-Dates with that carnelian dial, or, I think, is there a mother of pearl, or is that a Daytona? Anyway, they have plenty of semi-precious stone dials in the collection already. One thing I would counter your argument with on the price front is that we've seen, as stone dials have become more popular, brands have figured out ways of doing them in a very sort of cost-effective way of doing it, and cost-effective strategy, right? Like, we stock in our London studio Denison, where you can buy a stone dial for under £700. Now, I'm not saying Rolex would go down that route and use the exact same suppliers and blah, 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 because they have to do it themselves, and they're going to do it with that Rolex quality. But it's not, you don't have to sort of immediately think, oh, it's got a stone dial, it's going to be X amount more money. So it can still be entry level.
But at the same time, like, you look at like a company like Baltic, right? Like the Baltic stone prismics are more expensive than your regular prismic. You have to tier it, right? So with the Oyster Perpetual, they don't, even when they did the lacquered color versus like your standard black and bright blue sunburst dials, they were pretty much like, I would presumably the exact same price. The reason why so look, you're right. Day-Date, of course, it's nothing new stone for Day-Date. It's happened. But I think if we could go back in time, and I was discussing this with you, for the 80th anniversary of the Datejust, and as a Datejust collection, which is much more tiered, and you can start at a lower point, but then you can add white gold bezels and Jubilee bracelets and diamonds and make it more expensive. I think what you've got rendered here is much more likely to be shown for the 80th anniversary of a Datejust than it would be for your entry Oyster Perpetual. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't disagree. I think that would be an amazing addition to the Datejust line, and I think it would be incredibly hot. But I think if Rolex were to try and repeat the success of those sort of amazingly colored OP dials, the lacquer dials from 2020, the best sort of the 2025 way of doing it is to do it with stone dials. They can't go and just have new colors of lacquer. They've got to reinvent it a little bit, and the best way to do it right now would be with stone dials, in my opinion. Yeah,
no, look, again, nobody would object to having stone dial perpetuals, but there's like Instagram versus reality.
Absolutely.
Do I think it's realistic for the Oyster Perpetual to have a stone dial? No. Could we see it in a Datejust? Maybe. Could we see it in a Day-Date? Definitely. I think that's sort of the tiering of it.
And look, I preface this whole article by saying a lot of this is not going to become reality. A lot of this is just wish list, me just sort of throwing out there manifesting what I want Rolex to do, and realizing that 90% of it's not going to happen. But
for sure,
why not shoot for the stars?
But let's make sure we're establishing for all of you guys watching this video what we think on. Nothing's 100% certain that we're talking about right now, but there's certain things that are more likely than others. So is this idea completely far-fetched? I think if we're looking within the Oyster Perpetual range, yes. But if we move it to things like the Datejust, it lands into a little bit more than a maybe, I think, which is interesting. Yeah. Okay, I think we do have one prediction that's definitely true. We're coming up on it.
Yeah,
more price increases.
Look, this felt like the biggest topic when it came to Rolex in 2024. It was every 3 to 4 months we had another Rolex price increase. Now, do I blame them for it? No. Am I going to have a go at them for it? Absolutely not. They have to increase prices in line with the increased price and the increased cost price of their parts. And a lot of the price increases were linked to the increased price of precious metals, most particularly gold, right?
Yeah.
We know that gold has completely exploded in the last 12 months. And while it has slowed down a little bit in the last few weeks, I don't see Rolex stopping in the price increases. They're not pricing people out of the market with these increases, because let's be honest, if you can afford to get a GMT or a Daytona, that means you've already bought X number of Rolexes. So you're not being priced out of that because you've got the cash in hand, you're already liquid enough for that. All you're doing is you're eating into the grey market margins. Simple. That's all they're doing here. And so I just see it happening at least once, if not twice more in 2025. Will it happen at Watches and Wonders? Probably not. But that might be the time to do it, as it just slips under the radar of all the other headlines that we're focusing on. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you mentioned, we did recently have that price increase on gold, and we saw for like gold Daytonas and Sky Dwellers and whatnot, prices going up just a few percent, which isn't negligible, but it's kind of in line with every year Rolex does this for inflation, and everybody has a perception of what a watch should cost, right? Like when you have something like a Nautilus that sells for $100,000 on the secondary market, people will go, it's not an $100,000 watch. It's a $30,000 watch. And as Rolex prices creep up, if other brands don't also creep up as well, do we get to a point where like a GMT-Master in 2035 is a $25,000 watch? I'm being ridiculous here, of course. And then when it gets to that level, are people sitting there going like, this isn't a $25,000 watch? But the unfortunately, when it comes to something like Rolex, there will always be a market for Rolex, whatever they charge. The Wilsdorf Group, typically speaking, has been very fair with what they price their watches at, particularly with Tudor. So the idea that whether steel or gold, if the watch goes up a few hundred or $1,000, and then comparatively on the secondary market, it's still much more, then they deserve to be closer to that market price, because that is the market price. That's what everybody values these Rolexes at, whether you agree with it as a more educated watch person than some of the more mainstream buyers that, want it as a hype or status piece. But they certainly aren't going ridiculous each year with the increases. It's just creeping upwards and upwards. And when does the buck stop? When does it get to a point where it's like...
Absolutely. I know, I agree. But then I'd say that, it can sometimes hurt as a collector when you see brands sort of continually increasing prices, and it's really difficult to see that, there's no increase in the quality of product. But it's just understanding market conditions at the end of the day. And I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on them. I read up enough to understand what I have to write about. But these sorts of things are a harsh reality of watch collecting today.
Yeah, but the other reality as well, like when you talk about collectors, if you own a Rolex and Rolex increases prices, then you're kind of sitting there going like, yeah, like maybe up another $1,000, because then the value of your watch is being inflated, even as somebody who could sell it to the secondary market.
This is true, although that value is more dictated by secondary players than Rolex anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Datejust I'm wearing on my wrist right now, this is a Datejust 36, bright blue dial, fluted bezel Jubilee bracelet. When I paid for it, it was in the, I want to say high 8,000 range. Mm-hmm. And now it's a watch that sells over at retail, like I think above 10 grand. So, and I bought this in, I'm forgetting the exact year, but it was like 2021 or 2020. One or the other, 2020, 2021. I've got to do my homework there. But, it's only been a few short years. And now as a result of those price increases, if I ever were to sell this, I stand to make a few thousand more than I would have had I even just walked out the door and tried to flip it right as I bought it.
And that watch has incredible provenance as well, Zach, having spent much time on a very prevalent and very, very promising young watch journalist wrist. But
Yeah.
I would quickly, to close this off,
Yeah.
I would draw us back to the comments of Jean-Frédéric Dufour, CEO of Rolex, when he came out and he said, "We do not make investments, we make watches." And that to me says everything about these price increases. They're not looking at these price increases in a market sense, in a investment sense. They're not trying to gouge people's pockets. They're looking to price these watches fairly for collectors, not for investors.
Yeah. Which I like I said, I give him that credit. All right, to get us closer to the finish line here, you did also mention a crazy off-catalog piece supposed to be kept secret. Quickly, what do you think that's going to be? Is it going to be that GMT Master that we were just discussing?
Well, it would be great if it wasn't, because I want that GMT Master to be in the catalogue. I would love it to be a new Sky Dweller, personally. I think so. Go sort of completely off the wall and crazy with that. With Sky Dweller would be fantastic. To give context here to those that aren't aware, last year, quite literally, the talk of Palexpo, of Watches and Wonders, during that first day was, have you seen the yellow gold Le Mans Daytona?
Yeah.
And everyone was like, what are you talking about? That watch doesn't exist. Everyone knows it's white gold. Shut up. And everyone's like, no. Go look at Justin Haas' Instagram. It does exist. And he got access to it. He got access to it.
He got a cheeky photo that none of us during our presentations.
Yeah. He got that cheeky photo in, and then I think I had an appointment with Rolex the next day, and I managed to get my cheeky photo of it too.
Yeah.
And it's something that wasn't shared widely, is an off-catalog piece, and
led to the discontinuation of the white gold just after like a year or less.
Yeah, exactly. And I can confidently say, even though, like you were saying, you've never seen a 1908 out in the wild, I've seen one of these out in the wild, on the wrist of Jackie Stewart, no less, on the red carpet of F175. But I think there will be another watch just like that becomes the sort of the talk of the fair. And everyone's like, have you seen it? No. Who's seen it? Why have they seen it? And why have I not seen it? And it just becomes this sort of elusive Pokemon to try and catch.
But all right, so look, we've pretty much covered everything in the article that you wrote. One thing I want to do real quickly is we did post on Instagram these predictions. So let's take a look at some of the comments that people have.
Go on, hit me. I haven't looked at these at all, Zach, so you're going to hit me with them blind.
We're looking at them fresh. So Kevin Odell at They Did. For those who don't know, he's a very, very, always has great inventory. He's a watch dealer and he knows his stuff. So he wrote, they aren't going to put stone dials into entry-level steel models or any steel models for that matter. I wonder what wise person was kind of just insinuating. But then again, the date just isn't, it's not a precious metal watch right now. They do two-tone. But that's actually a prediction I would have thrown out there is for the 80th anniversary, do we get full precious metal date just? Nothing crazy, not even stone, but like just a full yellow gold date just, which would be really, really cool. So yeah, Kevin, I would agree with that assessment. But then again, you got Wrist & Co going, stone dial OP would be fire with 5 flame emojis. And I think we're all in agreement there as well. If they would do it, it would be really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. We've seen Rolex go against the grain and go against their sort of standard practice before. So why not now? Yeah.
So Relentless Chaos 94. I heard rumors of a 37 millimeter Submariner no date. That would be an incredible watch. Well, 2 things. 1, if it's a Submariner, it doesn't have a date. If it's a Submariner date, it's a Submariner with a date window. I'm being an absolute watch snob when I say that, but I want to retire the whole Submariner no date. It's Submariner and Submariner date. There's no such thing as Submariner no date. Watch dealers invented that term because the date one is more popular and therefore everybody associates it with being the Submariner. But I'm kind of inclined to not, as much as I would love that, hold out any hope. I think 37 is going to be a size that's reserved for the Yachtmaster. And then if you want like a 37 millimeter Submariner like watch, you'll have to go to Tudor for the Black Bay 54. Just my 2 cents there.
No, that sounds pretty sensible and about right. And I would say that I don't see Rolex trying to encroach on Tudor's territory there with sort of smaller dive watches.
Yeah. So we've got a few people that are willing to sell a kidney to get a 1908. One person saying
you've got two. Why not?
Yeah, with the center seconds and the complication, maybe a moon phase. So I think we're all in agreement there. And we got somebody else pointing out that the retail price in the OPs is too low to be putting stone dials in. It's meant to be their budget line. Far more likely to come back to the date and occasional date just. Another point for Zach. No, there's no winners there. But the one that's actually standing out to me right now on the page that maybe we'll end this with is I'm like afraid to just say this username, but Gareth Dix wrote, "Let's face it, it's going to be a new color." And that's probably for better or for worse, the safest prediction that you could ever make about Rolex is that it will simply be a new color. We're pretty lucky if it's a year where a watch case changes a millimeter, or if there's a new caliber or an exhibition case back.
You could probably tell
from color.
You could probably tell from my prediction, Zach, that it drives me mad when Rolex slim down their lugs and everyone goes wild over it. And I'm just like, honestly, put them next to each other, I couldn't tell you the difference. And I honestly don't care because it makes no difference to me when I'm wearing them and if I'm
I do care because
good. You should. There should be people out there that should.
I don't care that it's maxi versus vintage inspired. I don't care about the width. I care that they make the effort to slim, but then the lug to lug on a piece like a Daytona increases from the full ceramic bezel to the insert variant that we now have. So it's like, what's the point of slimming the watch if you're also going to just sort of make it longer? So I'm the kind of person where I have no desire to own the latest Daytona in steel. I'd want the previous generation with the full ceramic bezel because the lug to lug is much shorter. But all right. Yeah. I think
all I want is a stone dialed OP. There we go.
Yeah. Well, Rolex, if you're listening and you make it, you got to give them an allocation. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this predictions video. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you'll be notified of all of our latest videos. And before you leave, head down into the comments. Let us know what your predictions are for Rolex. If you agree with any of the predictions that Russell put in his article, or if you want to tear them apart, as I sometimes did just now, please do that as well.
Bring it on. Yeah. Bring it on.
Everybody, please, like I said, subscribe, because how else are you going to see our Watches and Wonders videos if you don't hit that subscribe button? I got you there. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.